Holy Shamrock.
It's not often I get a chance to build a subject like this, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it's a model from a video game that Zoukei-Mura released in 2014. The game is Valkyria Chronicles and it was released in 2008, and it's a military role-playing style of video game, and it has somewhat of a cult-like following, which makes these models pretty hard to find in the present day. This model is actually a commission build, and I'll talk about some of the ups and downs and ins and outs of commission building in another video in another time. And I'm only mentioning that now because the brief for this build was to keep it quite reserved and keep the weathering fairly low key, which is something I can struggle with from time to time. But nevertheless, join me as I take you through creating a custom mask set, as well as the build up of this little fictional tank known as Shamrock. Like with most builds, I begin with the wheels, and the colours the instructions call out are quite specific. And whilst painting with lacquers is my happy place, I had the acrylics on the shelf, so I chose to paint this one to avoid having to concoct any special coloured mixes with lacquers. The wheels had been primed in a Mr. Surfacer Black, as this will double for my rubber colour. With the aid of a spraying template, I can then look to fill in the centres of the wheels. They alternate between pale grey and blue grey. If you can source a spraying template, I'd highly recommend grabbing one because they can really fast track painting your wheels. The hull and suspension are basic assembly and are painted in that blue grey again. As I stick the wheels on, it's interesting seeing that stylized cartoon-like take on a Panzer 38T chassis taking shape. Very familiar, but interestingly unique all at the same time. I pre-painted the link and length track sections in a dark grey primer straight from a rattle can and broke them down into the various groupings. Using the Tamiya extra thin cement will give me a working window where the connection points will be soft, and if I work quickly, I'm able to roll those track assemblies around the drive sprocket and the idler wheel and then lay that top length of track in place. Link and length tracks can either be amazing or a disaster with no seeming reason why one side works and the other side doesn't. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. These ones were okay and looked pretty tidy when all fitted in place. I could now fit the top half of the hull in place, and you get an understanding as to why I've pre-painted all that running gear and the track sections when I did. Access would be a nightmare and is only going to get worse, so a little bit of planning can save you a lot of grief when painting your models. Using a painter's tape to mask the wheels and tracks, I could then head outside and blast the model with my black primer. Priming a model is an important part of the painting process, especially now I'm using acrylics. The primer will not only act as a microfiller, but more importantly in this case will give the acrylic paint something to bite into. I'll be fitting a lot of vinyl masks to achieve that final camouflage scheme, as well as applying enamel washes over the top. So if the integrity of that paint is less than perfect, I'm leaving myself open to failure. Shaking and mixing your paints before you use them is important no matter what type of paint you are using, but it is particularly important when using acrylic paints. I'm also thinning the paint with the brand specific acrylic thinner to ensure that acrylic paint system works. Acrylics are water-based paints, so you can thin them with water, among other things, but using the dedicated acrylic thinner is the safest and most predictable way to get a predictable result from your paintwork, especially if you are new to airbrushing. You've been watching me apply the pale grey over the black primer, and I'm working over the model section by section and purposely keeping that coverage imperfect to allow that black primer to influence the colour. Most of this colour will soon be overpainted, but I'm hoping it will offer some variation on the finished model. Painting in small areas at a time also helps you practice control with your painting and is a really good habit to get into. I'd also assembled the turret, as you may have noticed. The kit is highly simplified and is very much an exercise in painting, so I'll focus on those areas of the build. The spaced armour is also painted in that pale grey and set aside to dry. The Shamrock comes with an interesting scheme with a combination of arrows pointing in different directions, and whilst it would be possible to recreate that using a masking tape, it would be a laborious task. I'm lucky enough to have access to Adobe Illustrator in my professional life, as well as a number of printers and cutters here at work, so I set about making a basic mask set of the shapes to create the masks for this model. The instruction sheet is first scanned, and by taking some crucial measurements over that model, I can scale them up on screen so it's 1:1 on my artboard. In this scheme, there are two basic shapes. There's that complex arrow with the top and tail, and then there's just that simplified single arrow. Redrawing shapes comprising of straight lines is a pretty simple proposition, so once happy with the shape and the scale, I cut them out of a self-adhesive vinyl on my plotter. Working my way around the parts, I'm trying to follow the instructions as best I could, but there is a certain degree of interpretation in some of these parts and the placement of them. A scheme like this is more about feel than perfection though, I've found, and after looking at the placement and the spacings of the arrows, I was ready to spray that complementary colour. Blue-grey is thinned and fired through the airbrush. The mask can tend to want to lift over time, so it's a good idea to ensure that it's all sitting flush with the model prior to spraying. Another handy tip is to keep the angle of your airbrush around 90 degrees from that model, and by doing this you can help avoid any underspray if that mask does happen to lift. You'll probably notice I'm still working in those small defined areas as I move my way through the build. But I'm being more purposeful with the paint application, and I'm not applying this layer in that mottled way as I did the previous one. If I was to do that, I'd risk those pale grey arrows not having enough contrast against the blue-grey. So after the painting had finished, I started removing the masks. Using tweezers and the like to remove the masks can be a risky business, as there is a high chance it will damage the paintwork underneath if you're not extremely careful. If the vinyl is proving to be problematic, heating it with a hairdryer can soften the adhesive and help it come away a little easier. Overall, the grey and the blue-grey scheme came up a treat, and it was something completely different from the norm. Details like the leather straps on the side skirts were brush painted using acrylics, as were the various tools. I'd left any lift hooks and brackets off the model so the masking would be easier, so they could now be attached and painted in the appropriate colours. I'm a big advocate for gloss varnishing before you apply your decals to help avoid silvering and adhesion issues, and I'll go into that into another video, but let's just say it's a bit of an insurance policy, especially for the beginner. I've used a UV gloss varnish straight from the rattle can, and then I start to apply the decals around the model. Even though I've applied the gloss varnish, a decal softener is still required as the decals bridge over irregular shapes and rivets. That softener helps soften the decal, so it will relax over and sit through any of the details that are underneath it. It takes time and a little patience, but it is a very handy fluid to have on the shelf. I help work the decals over the rivets with a cotton bud. And although I haven't filmed it, once the decals are in place, the model is sealed with 2 coats of VMS satin varnish. The tracks are then dry brushed in a gunmetal colour to catch the leading edges of them. This process was repeated later in the build, but the application is exactly the same. The side skirts and spaced armour are then glued in place using a super glue. I've mentioned this many times before, but I'll say it again. I'm using a super glue rather than a modelling cement because the parts have been painted. So the super glue will give me the best chance of it adhering and not damaging the paintwork too much. White is a notoriously difficult colour to brush paint, so the white on the gun barrel was sprayed again with the aid of that spraying template. Because of the way this scheme hits the eye, a pin wash was always going to be a crucial part of this model. Although I'm planning on a highly reserved weathering application, I view the pin wash stage as more of an integral part of the paintwork rather than a weathering technique. Granted, it can and does add a somewhat grimy look, depending on the colour you're using of course, but for me it's an important part because it will redefine the shapes and the details around the model that are currently being obscured by that complex camouflage scheme. I chose a brown-blue enamel wash in the hope that it would complement the tones of that scheme. The paint for the most part finds its way around the details through capillary action, however it's inevitable that you will have to help it migrate around some of those details. The beauty of painting the enamels over the acrylics is it's easy enough to remove any excess wash and tidy it up with a soft makeup sponge. If however that sponge isn't moving the paint, a brush moistened with white spirit usually does the trick. The wash instantly redefines the lines and shapes around the model and adds a depth to that colour palette that wasn't present before. And still on the enamels, an earth coloured wash is applied through the tracks to introduce some earthy tones to that area. Unfortunately, I failed to film the last step in the process, and that was a light application of thinned Tamiya buff around the lower edges to represent a layer of dust with the airbrush. And with that step complete, I could call this Shamrock done. If I was building this model for my own collection, I would have approached it in a very different way, but because I was building to a brief, I had to keep within the parameters of what the collector wanted and what they had in mind. With a fictional subject like this, I guess having those boundaries in place isn't the worst thing in the world because you have a clear vision as to what the model should look like. I've found in the past some of these left of centre fictional subjects can evoke analysis paralysis. It's interesting as modelers how much we rely on real life reference to influence our outcome, but with a subject like this you really don't have that, hence the overthinking can creep in. If you've enjoyed this one and are familiar with the Valkyria Chronicles, I have the Edelweiss build coming up for you soon, so be sure to keep an eye out for that one. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and make sure you're subscribed. And if you'd like some additional content, be sure to join me over on the Patreon page. Remember guys, this is the greatest hobby in the world. Share it with your family and share it with your friends, and let's be proud of what we do. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
Dad, can I have $50 for a Shamrock tattoo?